Have you ever woke up in the middle of a dream and the dream was so interesting that you wanted to go back to sleep to see the end of it? If so, what was the dream? I had a nightmare a couple years back, and I still remember some bits. I was in a city where there was an outbreak of a disease. Infected people would start leaking black stuff from their eyes and noses and attack non-infected people. For some reason, I was walking in a part of the city that was completely deserted a couple days after the outbreak. Very faintly I heard someone crying. I approached and found out that it came from a backyard. If I wanted to see who it was, I had to climb a high fence. When I walked into the backyard, I was fucking horrified. There was a crying little kid, like 3 years old, on a leash, tied to a pole. I didn't dare to approach, because that child was leaking Valk stuff from the nose. I woke up after this, and was still horrified. The parents had to leave their child, who was still alive, chained to a pole outside. That fucked me up for a couple of days. When I wake up in the morning, I usually have approximately 30 more minutes before I have to actually get out of bed. If I'm having a dream before I wake up and I go back to sleep, I can usually continue the dream. Last night I had a dream that I was in some kind of resort, Jurassic Park-like area. I went back to sleep this morning and managed to get into a relationship with a pretty hot dude who was working at the resort. I dreamt that I was part of some Eastern European resistance movement who had to speak in code and hide out in abandoned manors in the forest to plan our attacks against some fascist regime. We enlisted the Pope to help us, but when we went to meet him, he has double-crossed us because the regime we were fighting somehow knew the Pope was gay and was going to tell everyone. I woke up then, not knowing if my resistance group was executed, or if we escaped somehow. I call it my gay Pope dream. I was friends with Jesus in the modern day and he was sound, not preachy. One of the lads like. I was eating the most delicious chicken nuggets ever. I learned I could fly, but I had to teach myself. Woke up right as I was gearing up for the big test to see how high I could go. Forced myself back to sleep, and let me tell ya, flying in a dream is way too fucking fun. I used to have lucid dreams in my early to mid-20s. As soon as I'd realize I was asleep, I'd start flying or just rising to the ceiling because it was a cool way to test it. Then my immediate thought would be, who should I pretend sleep with? And the excitement over that possibility woke me up every damn time. Was exploring a jungle with a group of, I assume, friends. We ended up discovering some kind of temple, but it was dark, so we decided to set up camp. I was charged with gathering dry wood and leaves for the fire, while macheting my way through vines. I heard my name being screamed by one of the group members in a terrified way. Repeatedly. Woke up to see my mom yelling my name and to get the fuck up already. I never found out what that temple was. A few months before I got married, I had a dream where Bill Murray was attending my wedding and asked to make a toast. I happily agreed. Then, before I could hear the toast, I woke up. I once dreamt that all of my family and closest friends were on the world's largest cruise ship. Along the way, we somehow were exposed to radioactive waste that gave us all superpowers or other mutations. I remember this so vividly, being able to use my mind to move objects with ease. And I threw donuts at my brother, whose skin had turned as hard as stone. This one girl on the cruise that we all universally hated, for reasons I can't remember, received a really random and useless mutation. She grew a really fat lizard tail, like a leopard gecko who has eaten a lot. Lol. She was crying about how ugly she was now, and all we could do was laugh. Then I woke up. A long time ago, I had a dream that there were ghosts living in my family's garage. Nowhere else. just the garage. I somehow became friends with one, but she was unable to speak to me, leave the property that the house was on, and wasn't able to show any facial expressions that wouldn't be considered terrifying. Me and my ghost friend were playing on the house porch and two guys were trying to break into the house. She tried to stop them by scaring the living heck out of them by making a terrifying face and screaming the most blood-curdling scream ever right in their faces. I wasn't able to see the face she made, but I somehow knew it was there, and all I could hear was the scream. The people trying to rob the house ran off, but instead of celebrating, I curled up and started crying because of how terrifying the scream was. I absolutely loved that ghost, and I forgot that her whole purpose was to scare people, but she did it to protect me and the house. I still cried though, and she tried to cheer me up the best way she could. Then I woke up. I knew that was a dream, but I didn't want to leave my ghost friend alone, knowing the last time she saw me was when she scared me to tears by accident. I tried to go back to sleep, and I did, and I somehow successfully re-entered the dream. Only it was several years in the future. The garage still had a couple of ghosts in it, but not nearly as much, and the rest seemed to be oblivious to humans. I was going into the attic and found some pictures in there of me around the age I was friends with the ghost, and on a picture I saw a very faint image of her face standing next to me. I went down the attic and woke up. I didn't get to tell the ghost that I forgive her or anything, and I still feel some sort of emotional attachment to her. It was probably the best nightmare I've ever had, and one of the dreams I've wanted to go back to the most, just so I can tell her that there are no hard feelings. I have a story about when the opposite of this happened. It was a fucking epic fantasy dream. Let me tell ya. Evil wizard of some sort that I'm pretty sure was my 8th grade math teacher kidnapped princess. A worthless but snappy sidekick that was my best friend IRL. This dream had everything. So I beat the bad guy, rescued the princess and brought her back to a village of, I think, Ewoks or something. I dunno. Big celebration. Everybody went hooray and stuff, and then it didn't end. We just kinda stood there looking at each other. It felt like a long time. Ewoks just kinda start milling around and doing their everyday shit. Made some small talk with the princess, and then eventually the dream ended and I woke up. It was a strange one. I died in one of my dreams, so that was startling, but I was dead for a good 15 seconds or so in my dream, so that was interesting to say the least. My son is in the Air Force and has been stationed overseas the whole 3.5 years he's been in. He's in for 6 years instead of 4. So, anytime I dream about him, I want to go back to sleep to see him a little longer. I had one this morning. I'm a heavy sleeper, and whatever goes around me tends to get in my dreams. It's a curse at times. But this morning I had an Amber Alert at 3:30 a.m. and my dream went from being okay to my friends getting incinerated by a nuke. I was the only one that survived, but by the time I was about to leave the bunker to see the devastation, I woke up turning off the alert. I had a nightmare about being a teenage girl with a group of friends on bikes hiding from and hunting down a shadow monster that killed dogs, and we tracked it down to some abandoned house and tried to rescue the dogs, but one of the dogs started barking and I had to try and calm it down before the monster came and got us, and my friends screamed from another room at the do. Then I woke up and I will never know if those dogs survived. I've recently become disabled. My dreams are of walking without pain or a limp. I'm so disappointed when I wake and my disability is still there. I dreamt my dad was still alive. Hell if I know. All of my dreams fade away 20 seconds after I try to tell them to someone. The most I will ever remember is the feeling that the dream was awesome and that I want to go back. Never can. Most nights actually. I very rarely have nightmares, and even those are very interesting. Life inside of my head is much more entertaining than reality. Oh boy. Here we fucking go. I had this dream which I still remember vividly, even if I was 9 to 10 at the time. So, I was walking down the street and met my primary school teacher. A cute old lady with the driest humor ever. We talked for a bit and she invited me over to talk and drink some tea. I enter her house. She makes the tea and we sit in this area with 3 walls made out of bookcases. In between there were these 2 somewhat fancy chairs and a round low coffee table. We talked for a bit and she starts telling me how she brought me here for a good reason. And she just does some magic or presses a damn button or whatever and a wall opens exactly like in Dexter's laboratory. She invites me in, and I see all these people doing a variety of stuff. People being tied to metal hospital tables, in tubes, whatever. Everything had this technology kind of blue, and I walked through this huge mall-like revolving door. I realized I fell asleep a bit after walking, so it must have had some kind of sedative or something. Anyway, I wake up, and in my fear I am tied to a metal table, without any skin. I can see my muscles, all of them, move, twitch and contract, all while I am fighting to break loose from the table. That teacher comes by and says to me in the lines of "Don't worry. It's all part of the procedure." I see other people around me, exactly in the same state. She releases me after a bit. She gives me this spandex dark blue suit and told me to wear it. After I put it on I could move like somewhat of a superhero. I could run really fast. I could jump really high. I was very agile and nimble. She told me I am some sort of recruit and that she has a mission for me. After that I just remember teleporting to some place by my home, with a gal that I knew by me as my duo, with the task to catch this black invisible morphing dog. I remember aiming at that thing with something like this bulky black blaster. After which, I woke up. You can tell that my young me was very pissed for not being able to be a superhero. I don't remember sad face. I have a crush of 3 years, who rejected me, yet I dreamt about being with her as couples. I know this will never happen in real life. So when I woke up, I forced myself to sleep again. Unfortunately that was the last of it. I had a dream that I had a bunch of birds and snakes just living in my kitchen. They were my pets, and I was cuddling my snakes on the couch, watching Netflix while my birds were chilling out, flying on top of my fridge and stuff. It was a great dream, and it was so vivid that when I was waking up, I thought, crap, I left my snakes on the couch out with the birds. I hope they didn't eat one of the birds. I was disappointed when I came back to my senses and there were no animals in my home, but relieved that I wasn't such a negligent pet owner that my imaginary snakes ate my imaginary birds. I think mostly just waking up from a regular good dream. I'll try to continue it the next night as I fall asleep. Don't forget to share, like and subscribe for more content.